Oh, this is a second video here. This is Robert, used to be Bob Brenner.
That's right.
And we haven't seen each other for 46 years.
46 years.
And so I got to know you. You were a senior at Washington and Lee.
Yep.
I was a sophomore. And I got involved somehow with this Methodist youth group, and you were leading that as a student.
I was the leader. I had thought about going into ministry, and so when I went home in the summer to tell my pastor not to tell anybody that I was going to ministry, he was very pleased, and he asked me to say the prayer on the Sunday morning. And as he announced for me to say the prayer, he said, "This is, at that time, Bobby. This is Bobby Brenner." And he's just told me that he's going to ministry. So from that point on, I was committed to the ministry, but I had no idea who Jesus was.
Right.
So my senior year, here I am. I'm running a boys' club for Appalachian kids. I'm the youth pastor at the local Methodist church, doing a number of things. Living at the Wesley House on campus, and John met me, and he obviously saw that I was lost upon lost. And so we began meeting at the church. I had the key to the church, and we would meet in the church basement. John would get to go in the pastor's office. His name was Al Schrader.
That's right, yeah.
Al Schrader's desk, and I would take the secretary's desk, and we'd study independently. And then we would come together and we'd read scripture and pray. And one night, John was always teaching me, which was a good thing. And I knew that he had something that I didn't have. And I just couldn't figure out what it was. But one night, we read John 4, and when we got to the part about the woman at the well, and Jesus saying, "I'll give you water that you'll never thirst again," I'm one who always thirsted, and never can get my thirst quenched. And I thought, I've got to have that. And I don't even know if I said anything aloud to you, John, or not. I don't know. But we prayed, and you would usually pray first, and then I would try to pray. But I remember just saying, "Okay, Lord, I want that. This is what I want." And it was amazing, the peace of God that came on me at that point. And we walked out that side door, remember, downstairs, that side door into the alley. Yeah. And locking the door, and you went your way, and I went toward the Wesley House where I was living. And I remember just as I walked up almost to Lee Street. Yeah. It began snowing. It started snowing, but the snow was coming down, and I was just overwhelmed with the peace of God that I had. Wow. Since I didn't know any choruses at that point, I just sang from the Sound of Music. These are a few of my favorite. John, just like as Steve said, John was not the timid sort. I remember one time we were in a retreat for kids, and I was trying to make a point about not just worshiping the Bible, that we needed to worship God. I don't even know what the point was totally. I don't know if it was pre knowing Christ or post. I have no idea. But to make a point, I threw the Bible down, and John gave me a good talking to after that. And it was. I don't think I've made that mistake ever again. The bad thing was
the last time you threw the Bible.
Yeah. But I'm grateful for your husband. I'm grateful for this man. He is my spiritual father. Every time I give my testimony, I talk about John White. And who would have thought that Steve and I, in meeting together just by chance at lunch on Friday.
Tell that story real quick.
Would have told. Okay, well, we're part of the Anglican
Colorado
Mission,
Springs. Yeah.
Colorado Springs Anglican Mission in America. My pastor was being ordained a bishop, and Steve Breloff had just been ordained a bishop in this movement in October in Denver at Cherry Creek Presbyterian, by the way. And so we happened to be sitting at a table with other people, and for some reason I said, because I was planning the whole event. My wife and I were in charge of this whole thing. And I said, I noticed that you're flying back to Raleigh. Do you live in Raleigh? And he said, "No, I live in Chapel Hill." So I told him when I'd gone to Duke. He told me that his son was now at Duke. And for some reason I made the comment that I'd gone to Washington and Lee, and Steve's face just got like this, and he said, "I went to Washington and Lee." He asked me when I was there. I told him it was 63 to 67. And then we found out that we were actually sitting at a table of deacons, and they were supposed to be talking deacon things. And so the guy that was head says, "If I could we need to talk the deacon stuff." So after lunch, I was standing and doing some stuff, and Steve came over to me and said, Did you know John White at Debbie Nell? And I was like, "John White from Washington, D.C. area?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, he's the guy that led me to the Lord." And Steve said, "Well, he led me to the Lord, or re-led me to the Lord." And the shock on our faces was amazing. So I was like, I have no idea where he is. I've tried to find him, and John White is way too normal a name. And so when he said Denver and that he had lost track, my wife and I did a search yesterday morning, and she was the one that found LK10, and the rest is history. So thank you for your husband. He is an amazing man of God.
And after school, you went to Duke Seminary.
I went to Duke.
And became a pastor for a while. And
yeah,
then
for about 5 years. I did inner city ministry, and then kind of got kicked out of the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
And I got involved in the discipleship movement
Right.
with Derek Prince, Don Basham, and Charles Simpson, and did that for a while. And then I ran. Our store had a Christian bookstore. Our church had a Christian bookstore, and I began running the store. And it was like I found what I was really good at. So the Christian Book Sale Association is located in Colorado Springs.
Right.
The president came to visit me to see my store because he heard so much about it, and we had lunch together. And by the end of that evening, he had basically offered us the job to come to Colorado Springs. So in '86, we moved here while you were in Denver.
Yeah.
Which you did
Yeah.
now. Was here for 5 years, and then was hired by Integrity Music. And I've worked for them for.
And what do you do with Integrity?
For years I was vice president of marketing, and now I work with our artists and making sure they have the things they need to do their tours and that kind of stuff. But mainly I'm sort of the chaplain there. So.
Chaplain.
Yeah.
So good. What a treat that God has reconnected us after all those years.
I'm so glad.
Great.
Thank God.
Good. Thank you, Robert.
Oh, thank